G'day everyone, popping in for our usual Friday live chat with you all. What have we got today? You know what, it's absolutely bloody freezing. It's only 10 degrees Celsius today. I don't know what's going on in Melbourne, it's been that cold, but you know what, I'm going to share a beer with you today anyway. Hopefully this should warm me up a little bit. Good old Stella. I think this was the Italian one, wasn't it? Oh, no, it's Belgium, it says on there. Belgium. Anyway, I'm going to have this with you. So cheers. It's time to crack a stubby. I haven't cracked a stubby with you for a while, so I thought I'd pop in today and have a stubby with you. Even though it's cold, this may warm me up a little bit. Luckily, my studio here's got air conditioning to heating. So cheers, everyone. Let me pull over to the chat because we're going to have a few minutes talking in the chat before we actually start today. So who have we got? We've got Caspar is here, Oreo's here, Gordon is here from Ontario, Canada. Chris is saying sweet. Hello, David. It's Coronas in California. Oh, Coronas. Well, I'm having the Stella with you guys today, so I'm definitely having a stubby with you guys today. Dan said hi from Florida. Tim said you need to go to the brown ales to warm you up. I know I should have a Guinness or something. That'd be all right, wouldn't it? Pop a Guinness on. I don't like the bottled Guinness as much as getting it brewed though. Like we're lucky we have a local pub here that has Guinness on tap, and I love it. It's a local Irish pub, which I adore. Dominic said g'day. Excuse me, g'day. Don Chillin said hi. Studio 96, greetings all. Tim said might open one up of my own brew. Oh yeah, go for it, Tim. That should be nice. Roy said hi, David. That Belgian beer is good. Yeah, I know, it tastes all right actually. Jim saying hi, and hi Susie. David said great to be here. Jean said greetings. Mike said hi, David. I see you're drinking Belgian beer. Yes, I am. And it's not bad at all. I might even have a couple, and then I can be dancing on this tabletop later. Bugger the wedding editing today. This is not good, especially because it's so cold out there. Wayne, that's fantastic. Long live the stubby. I love it. Oh, that's so cool. So what do you guys call them in the US and England? Do you call them stubby like we do? I mean, like we say, crack the stubby. What's the saying that you guys all say over there? Like, I mean, it's just crack the stubby here for Aussies, but let me know what you say in America. Is there a saying like that? Or if you're in Europe, let me know. I'm just curious. Or is crack a stubby very Australian? Love you to answer that one. Now, while we're waiting, please give me a big thumbs up too, guys, because it does bring more people over onto the live chat. So if you can do that, I really would appreciate it if you could do that for me. Don't forget to join the photography Facebook group. Remember, that's for you guys. I've set this up for you guys. I haven't tried. Chris just asked if I like Guinness Blonde. I haven't tried that. I love Guinness though, Chris. I love it. Please join this group. I know I keep plugging it, but I want to do it for you guys. I get a lot of questions asked on my personal Facebook page, but I prefer it to be on here because this is what I've set this up for you. I'm giving weekly tasks. This was last week's winner. Let me just move it over. Last week's winner was leading lines, and I love that shot that was actually produced. We get stacks of people submitting their weekly posts. So, you know, join us. This week's weekly post is macro, which you can see down here. And I've already got 29 submissions through here that people are submitting all of their macro shots, and I choose a winner. There's plenty more. Where are we? There's been 26 or so submissions. There's 15 more comments down there. So you can see there's stacks and stacks of submissions that people are posting. So please join us in here because it's a great place, great community, very positive. I allow you to share your work, whatever you want to do. Just let me quit this for a minute. Yeah, so I allow you to share your work, share your Facebook pages, share your YouTube pages, things like that. So it's basically for you guys as well as me. So, you know, please join us in there. That's a photography, videography school. Last plug too, I have a workshop coming up. Please, if you're in Melbourne or Australia and you'd like to join us for that workshop, please contact me. I think it's the 18th of August. Kiara will be in that as well. So please join us for that. I'll just show you where that is. It's under oslerimages.com. If I go to the shop menu, it will be somewhere in here. It's actually here. Oh. This is the actual thing here. It's $200 Australian. We're going to cover things like off-camera flash, continuous lighting, gear essentials, remote triggers, light stands, setting up the gear, manual and TTL when you would use it, flash or continuous light, and also posing and things like that. We're going to walk around Melbourne, a few locations. So please join us for that too. And it's going to be on the 18th of August. The location has still got to be decided yet, so please join us on that, and I'll be plugging that over the next few weeks as well. But that is under my Osler Images. It's in the link anyway. I'll put it down below so you'll be able to see that there as well. So it is off-camera flash and continuous lighting workshop. So please join us in that as well. Let me just go back to this for a minute. Now make sure too, when we come up to the questions, put the @DavidOsler, because it does make sure that I can see it, guys. So please, if you do that, when we have questions later on, it'll just mean that I don't miss what you're saying. I'll give this another couple of minutes and then we'll start. Jim Penn says, pop a top. Where's that, Jim? Is that US, pop a top, or is that England? Is that in Europe? That's interesting. I've never heard that one before. Mike said, cold, it's 19 over here at 4:05 in the morning. Yeah, I know, it's 10 degrees Celsius here at midday. It's cold today, Mike, and we're not usually that cold. I think our average is probably around about 14, 15 in winter, but it's been cold the last couple of days. Little Blue Eye said, alcoholic, I love it. Gord said, just a bottle of beer now. We have the short neck bottles back in the day we call stubbies. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Philip's just saying hello. Oscar's also saying hi. Bruce Skies, what's that? Wayne, that's interesting. Chris said, I joined and it's a great group. Yeah, it is, Chris. It's fantastic. Mark said, Belgium won the World Cup last night, so quite appropriate. Actually, that's true. They did win it last night, didn't they? Bruce Skies, yes, that too. Okay. Good evening. Grab a cold brew. That's interesting. So Pop a Top is in the USA, is it? Oh, okay, Pop a Top. I like Cracker Stubby. All right, guys, we're going to get started today. So let's get started into the latest news and things like that. So we're going to have a look. There's not that much news actually today, so we're going to have a look at some anyway. And then we'll leave a fair bit of question time at the end where you guys can just throw your questions in and things like that. Yeah, people are saying pop a top. I've never heard of that before. That's really interesting. Okay, so let's go here. So first story today. Oh, you know what? I've done this again. How long have we been going for? 8 minutes 24. I always forget to start the timer so that I can do this plus 8 minutes. 8:30. I don't know. Hopeless. All right, so let's start. So I've got to put in there 8 minutes 30. All right, so lenses. Sigma now have, apparently that, I was just reading in here that they've now got 6 of the 9 lenses now in stock. So they are now starting to produce all these lenses and have them in stock now. And I just noticed that the new Sigma, because I know a lot of people were looking at that lens down here, that the Sigma 70 Macro is now also in stock, and the 20 1.4 lenses are also in stock as well. So now that's 6 of them that you can actually get. I think that it's the 35 you can get, the 50 is already in. Obviously now the 70's in. And maybe, I'm not sure, the 85 I think is also in. So there's quite a few now that you can actually purchase and get in. Clearly the one that I'm interested in, which is the 105, has still got to come. It's available in Canon and it's also available in Nikon, but it's not available on the SE. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later with you guys. So there are now a number of lenses that you can get in. Now, just to let you know too, I've got a meeting on Tuesday with a local rep here that they supply Sigma. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to build a relationship with them, that I'm going to be able to get some lenses that I can actually test for you guys. So I'll let you know more about that after this meeting that I've had next week. Because I really would love to try out some of these lenses and just test it for you guys, as well as some other things as well. So it's not like I'm going to be paid to do it. They're just going to, I'm hoping that I can just get it where they'll lend me the gear and I just have to plug it in the underneath where that shop is. So that's really the only plug. And because they sell everything, I'm not going to have to be biased or anything in what I actually review. So it may be a good relationship for both of us, but I've got to talk about that with them next week. So that's going to be a really interesting thing, and I'm really hoping that comes off, because I would dearly love to try the Sigma and also the 135 f1.8 lens as well. They're the two particularly that I'd like to try, and I am also interested too to try the 70mm macro, because I think that's a really good focal length. That really interests me actually. As you know, I use the 35 or is the 30mm, I always forget. I think it's the 30 f3.5 lens, which is an APS-C lens, and I've found that's fantastic for weddings and stuff like that, where I can get nice and close. But I would like to try the Sigma one, because looking down there, it's not that expensive. If you look at it, the Sigma is only working out to be $569 US, which is quite reasonable. And I think that's a good focal length for... See, I'm not shooting bugs or anything like that. I'm really only shooting stuff like weddings, which is like the bride's rings, the flowers, details in the wedding dress, things like that. So I really don't need like the 90mm macro, because I don't need to be that far away from the subject. A 90mm macro is perfect for shooting things like bugs and things like that. I used to have the 105 Sigma, which I really liked as well, but I had to be so far away from everything. But that was fantastic for shooting things like bugs and stuff like that. But like I said, I'm not really into that type of thing with macro. So if you are, the longer focal lengths tend to be really good. But if you're not, and you're shooting like me, having a shorter focal length like the 70, or like I said, I use the APS-C version, and that's fantastic. I can just stick that on my A6500 or the A7R2 and still get a 18, 19 megapixel file size, because they never blow those up very large. So I'm even happy shooting it on my A7 III or the A9 and getting a 8 or 9 megapixel file size, because that's ample enough for using it for a wedding album or something like that. But I am thinking about trying, I'd love to try that macro out, so I may use it. It may also be quite a good portrait lens too, and that's why I'd like to sort of get it just for that too, to try and see how it works for that scenario, because I do love that 85mm focal length, and a 70mm macro may still be quite a good portrait lens. So, you know, let me in the comments too whether any of those lenses really interest you, and what you'd love to see me actually review as well, because like I said, I've got this meeting next week and I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to get some of this stuff. So it's going to be interesting in the coming weeks. I mean, it may not happen next week or the week after, but I'm hoping in the coming weeks that I really can start to build a relationship with this company. It's quite hard in Australia because we don't have somewhere like B&H or Amazon, or particularly B&H, where I can just grab that gear and they'll send it to me for trials to test out. Because, you know, to be totally honest with you, a lot of the time I've only been reviewing the gear that I use, but I now would like to try to get gear that you may be interested in. That's why I'm seriously thinking about trying the Sigma stuff out as well. So let me know what you think about that anyway, because I really would be curious to know. Anyway, there are 6 lenses now that you can actually get that are in stock. That was B&H there that are actually in stock. And the 70mm macro is now in stock as well. So love to know what you guys think about that. So that's that first story. So let me move to the next one. What are we on? 543. All right, so the next story is talking about the Sony lens, the 400mm FE size comparisons. And I'm not sure too whether, cheers too by the way, there are a stack of reviews online now that you can actually go to. I do, and I have to be honest with you, I do wish Sony would change their marketing a little bit in the way that they releasing all of these lenses lately with all of these so-called YouTube celebrities. I'm not saying anything against them. I can understand why Sony do it. But it does make it a little bit boring when you're going through all these video reviews where every review is basically the same, you know, and they're showing the same images from the soccer match that they went to. Things like that. I really do wish that they'd start to use other people and review it like probably what Matt did, because at least Matt took it outside and he shot that girl that he works with, and therefore you could see some of the images and were done a little bit differently. I think it's probably about time, and look, Sony aren't going to be listening to me, but I really do wish that Sony would probably change their tack a little bit and start sending it out to reviewers, particularly in different areas, so that you're not looking at the same thing all the time, because it does get really boring. Because I noticed all those reviews that were put out, you know, were all the same. And the other thing too is I think Sony probably should have, and I think they've kicked themselves in the foot a little bit. They really should have had sports photographers reviewing that lens. That lens particularly is aimed at sports photographers. So I think it would have had far more credibility if they didn't use people like Tony and Chelsea. Look, I'm not having a go at them because their reviews were really quite good, but I think it probably would have been much better if they had sports photographers reviewing that camera for the purpose that it is. Now remember, there's no way I'm going to buy this lens, so I would never expect to see someone like me grab that lens. And I think that's the thing that I'm saying here. I really shouldn't be reviewing this lens. I really think that Sony should be putting that lens out to give to sports people that actually use that in their workplace. And that would have had far more credibility than giving it to people like Tony and Chelsea and all these other reviewers that are out there, you know, like even like Matt and others that I don't want to have a go at them, because I mean, naturally they're not going to say no to having this lens, but I really think Sony probably should change their tack a little bit. And that includes things like when they're reviewing portrait lenses. To be totally honest, they should be using people like me. For things like reviewing portrait lenses and things like that, where it's to do with, say, an 85 GM, where that would be my domain, they should be, and I'm not saying I'm going to get that, because I'm probably not, but they should be using people like me that do use it for their business. And therefore, it's not going to be all the same thing all the time that people are looking at, because it gets a little bit boring. Let me know what you say in the chat, because I'd love to know what you think about that. But I stopped watching them because every single one is showing the same thing. They're showing the same soccer match. They're showing the same thing over and over again. And I'm not having a go at those YouTubers, because they clearly have been asked to do it. If they asked me, I probably would go and do it. But I don't think it's a good thing to be doing though, Sony. If you are watching this, I think you should change your tack a little bit and stop the haters, because you cause a lot of these haters to go against these products, because you're putting people in front of that camera and using the gear that really is not a professional in that area. Let me know what you think about that. I don't mean to rant about it, but I really think they probably should change their thinking a little bit. And this is too where I can say things because I'm not sponsored by anyone and stuff like that, but I really think sometimes their reviews have been hardware people, for instance, reviewing the lenses when they should be portrait people. Anyway, let me know what you think about that. I really think it's, you know, it's something they need to change. Now, having said that, the lens looks fantastic. It really does look fantastic. I really like Matt Granger's review was really good of it, because like I said, he actually showed it from another perspective and he showed different things. So I really appreciated that. But it does look like it's really nice and light compared to the other lenses that are out there. It does really look like it's a really nice light lens compared to the other lenses that are out there. Naturally, the thing was too that the Canon people and the Nikon people started bagging the rendering. I mean, honestly, get a life, you guys. There's nothing wrong with the way the lens was rendering at all. I think it looked beautiful. Clearly, every single time, you know, that they start whinging about stuff and carrying on, I think this is fantastic. The lens looks like it's beautifully made. I love the ND filter that you can put in. It's a modern design. The weight is actually more to the back of the camera. Now, it's $12,000. Yes, there's no way known I'm going to buy this lens. That's why I said I shouldn't ever review this lens. But for who it's for, wow, for wildlife or if you're dealing with sport, fantastic. And remember, that's not expensive if you're dealing with that type of lens for what it's used for. Yes, it's a little bit dearer than the Canon, but it's around the same price as what the Nikon is. And to be totally honest, this is new technology. It's been designed a different way. You can do 20 frames per second on that camera with the A9. I mean, really, it looks, it looks beautiful, and I think it's an amazing piece of technology. You can see here, if you're looking at the size comparison, probably about the same size. It's more the weight that you're dealing with here that, you're dealing with that's fantastic. You can see down here that if you're looking at it, that the Sony A9 with the grip, it's 8.7 pounds. The Nikon D5 plus 400 is 11.94, and the Canon 1DX is 11.84. Now that is quite a lot. It really is quite a bit different than using the other lenses. Now people say that, that naturally, I heard Ken yesterday bagging it. Typical, he will bag anything, which is ridiculous. I don't know how you can bag that lens. Seriously, what Sony have done is amazing with that lens. Naturally, just haters are going to be haters, and I really think that it's fantastic for what it's delivering. It's a modern architect, it's modern design, it's been designed from the ground up, totally different system for focusing, like the rails is totally different. Anyway, I think it's going to be fantastic. So I didn't want that to be a bagging exercise. I just wish Sony would just change their thinking about how they reviews these cameras, because honestly, I don't want to see another one showing that soccer game, and you just get over it. It would have been better to hand it to those people and let them shoot in different areas rather than these really scripted type of things that Sony seem to be doing lately. Let me know in the chat anyway whether you agree with me. So anyway, that's that. So that lens is going to be released, I believe, early September. It's 12,000 US. It's going to be probably around 20 here in Australia. I definitely won't be buying it. But if you were a sports shooter, wildlife shooter, it's going to be a fantastic lens. And once again, Sony are just kicking they're checking all those marks. Next thing, there'll be a 500 one, and 600 will probably be coming out. I think they've got patents out there that are going to be available. So it's just a matter of time before those lenses come. I only mention this to you because today is the Sony news and rumour, so I thought I'd mention it. Like I said to you, it's not a lens that I'm going to be interested in, certainly not for $12,000, that's for sure. But anyway, I don't think the price is too expensive compared to the other lenses that are out there. If you think about how modern and new the design actually is, with stabilisation built in. So Jim said 12,000 will buy a lot of stubbies. It certainly would, Jim, that's for sure. So let's go on to the next story anyway. What are we on? 14 minutes. People are going to hate me because I bagged I bagged the Sony way that they're doing stuff. I didn't mean to, but it's just I get sick and tired of seeing the same reviews. Now, let's go to this Sony A9 firmware. Now, this did interest me. It may not interest many of you because you won't have the A9, but I noticed that you can add the serial number. That's something that a lot of the sports shooters and stuff have been asking for, that the serial number is baked into the actual file size. So now you can do that. You can turn it on or off as well, so you can actually turn it on or off. Cheers, guys. What else have we got? It also improves tracking performance of moving subjects. Now, I have to say, since doing the firmware update on the A9 the other day, the autofocus is that fast on this camera that I don't even need to turn it on to get focus. It is incredible. Basically, all I have to do is pick the camera up and it's in focus. It is unbelievable. No. I really haven't tried it yet, but I did try it doing some tracking of my dog, actually, and it does seem to be a little bit faster. So I think they have improved it, but I'll let you know more of testing that's coming up in the coming days. But they've basically said they've improved tracking performance using moving subjects in AFC mode, and I already thought it was fantastic anyway, but they actually said they've improved it using AFC mode. Improves autofocus speed in low light, so that's something I'm going to actually have to test because I thought it was already amazing. So if that's the case and they have improved that even more, it's certainly going to be great for my weddings and stuff like that, and I've found it already fantastic. So, you know, that's one really interesting thing as well. Adds AF track sensitivity as a select option for custom key settings. I still haven't looked at what that means yet. Oh no, I think you can change the sensitivity, so you can go from the low, medium and high, I think, or it might be a number, I'm not sure, but I know now you can set that from a custom key, so that again is a good thing if you're dealing with having to change your your AF track sensitivity. Add support for all focus areas when using the LA EO3 lens adapter. So in other words, now you can use Lock on AF and Flexible Spot and all those sort of things with the LAEA3, which again is great if you're using, I think that's for the A-mount lenses. What else? They've reduced release time when shooting with flash. I haven't noticed, I've heard a number of people saying that they've had issues with the A9 with flash lag, but perhaps it's because I use ProPhoto. I haven't noticed there's been a flash lag at all, but apparently now they've improved that. So if anyone has had that issue, you could let me know in the comments, because I'd be really interested to know if you've noticed that lag before. I haven't noticed it, so that's an interesting thing. Add support for slow sync and rear sync when using flash wirelessly, which is also a good thing now. Because before it was just your wireless, I think. Add support for white balance auto correction when using color filter on external flash. That's if you're dealing with the HLV F60RM. It's got a color filter that fits over the front. It's also saying that you have stabilized release time lag when shooting in AFC mode. And also improves overall stability of the camera. Well, who knows what that actually is. They always say that. Probably fix things that, you know, they just don't want to tell you they've fixed. But anyway, that's all there. So I have updated it. I haven't had the chance yet to to test it. Like I said, you know, I just haven't had a chance to try it, but I will over the coming days, I suppose. I'll let you know how it goes. So anyway, that's available. But I did notice that a couple of people are reporting that there's been some weird stuff happening with it. And let me know if you've noticed any of these in the live chat, because some people are saying that they're seeing anti-flicker appear up in the FN menu. And also some are saying that they're actually seeing a 500 frames per second rate option showing in the menu as well. Now, I haven't got these problems. Now, it might depend what you had in the FN menu before. So perhaps that's a thing where this bug or whatever shows up, depending on what you had in your FN menu. But apparently, even though it shows anti-flicker, I checked through the menus to see if anti-flicker was anywhere, and it's not, so it's obviously a bug. And also this 500 frames per second rate option doesn't appear anywhere either, and neither of those works even in the FN menu, so I think it's just a bug. So I'd say that Sony are probably going to release a new firmware to address that bug if multiple people are actually probably seeing it. But clearly, it looks like now that Sony are not going to offer any log profiles with the A9. I think that's definitely what's now going to happen. If they were going to release log, they would have definitely already done it. I can't now see them doing it. So, you know, I think if you were waiting on the A9 to get log, you're just going to have to basically give up on that aspect of it, because it's just not going to happen. Now, like I've said to you before, that doesn't bother me in the slightest, because I'm shooting standard profile with everything. So for me, it's not really an issue at all. And I've said to you before that I still think, and I still do believe, that the Sony A9 is the best video camera that Sony have produced, apart from not being able to shoot log. And the reasons why I say that is the downsampling, that processor is just incredible. It's the only camera that Sony have got that is the same if you're shooting Super 35 and full frame. There's no loss of detail at all. The Sony a7 III, for instance, it will suffer if you go to Super 35 mode, especially for ISO. So if you're shooting in low light, you can't go into Super 35 because there is a loss of quality. The A9 doesn't have that. There's no difference between shooting in Super 35 or full frame. And I've still found that the focus is the best that it's got there. And there's just something about the look of it that I just adore. And I definitely think it's still the best video camera that I can use. If I really do want to have the ultimate camera to say, shoot me for video, I'm still going to use the A9. Now, if I had to go, obviously in very high contrasty situations, well, then I might use my A7R II or the A7 III, where I can use the log profiles. But like I said, I really don't have to. I've been really amazingly happy with using it on the standard profile. And like I said, Craig from Wedding Film School has also put out a video talking about that as well. He's shooting standard profiles as well. Hasn't changed anything at all. So clearly, you don't have to use those flat profiles. And to be honest, I don't want to be doing that editing later on to make up for these log profiles or anything like that. And I found everyone keeps asking me, the videos that I post, what profile I'm using, because they're amazed at how the quality looks. And when I tell them it's a standard profile, they're blown away because they thought I was using some log profile to get that dynamic range. So it just shows you how good the Sony standard profiles are. So don't underestimate how good they are. But I definitely don't think that we're going to see that in the A9 now. I think it's basically gone. They're concentrating the A9 really on having for stills photography. And it still does have that excellent video, but you're just not going to get those video features like log and things like that. So you're just going to have to, I think, get over it. I was hoping for it initially. I did whinge about it initially. That's when I was more shooting in the log profiles. But since I've changed to be shooting everything in standard, it doesn't bother me now at all. So I just thought I'd share that with you because it's an interesting scenario. Next story. What are we on? 2204. 2215. All right, so next story is this. I just wanted to show you this because this was an interesting graphic. I know, look, you can't compare lens sizes, I suppose, because you're dealing with the f-stops. But if you're looking at the range, if you're dealing with a travel camera and you wanted a 20mm, how good does the Sony 20mm look in size? If you're dealing with that, that's a real pancake lens, isn't it? When you're dealing with that Sony camera, the 20 f2.8. I mean, the Sigma 20mm f1.4 is massive again, but you're dealing there with 1.4 lens. So you would expect that to be that case. The Tokina is 20mm to f2, which is I mean, that's not too bad, but obviously the Sony is tiny. That's another reason why I just adore this lens. You know, I really do adore having the 35 f2.8. I really love it. Look at the size of that thing on there. You know, it's tiny. And this is why I love doing street work or something like that with this lens. And f2.8 is fantastic for that. And, you know, just the size of this to take around is fantastic. And this is so sharp, this lens. I adore this lens and I'd never get rid of it. Kerry's always shooting with that, particularly when we do weddings, as the second shooter. And she loves it as well. So lightweight. I really adore these light lenses. The Samyang one is also very, very good. I mean, I'm lucky I've got the Sony one. But, you know, I really do like those really small lenses. And that Sony 20mm f2.8 could be a great lens for gimbals. I mean, that could be a fantastic one. That's probably Sony's only real pancake lens. It really is a tiny pancake lens. Let me know if anyone's tried that, because I'd be really curious to know. You know, is anyone interested also in the Sigma 20mm? I'd be more interested in the 35, but anyway, it's there anyway. I just wanted to show you those size comparisons because I thought that was interesting. Excuse me, burping a bit from the beer. All right, so next story, 24:30. Next story is this, the Sigma 105. I noticed that Mikkel did a video. There's a few actually on there. Mikkel's done one. And there's also a couple here that have reviewed it as well. And I'll put their links down below so you can get them if you're interested in looking at them. But it's really quite interesting. I noticed Mikkel said, I think he was talking on my group actually. He's part of the my group that I advertised before, the Photography and Videography School. He's actually, the issue is I suppose that he's saying that the focus lost it a few times, but he was using the Sigma adapter, I think it was the MC11, I think, and the Canon version. So that probably is a reason why it was struggling. And he said he's going to return it. Now, I would expect that anyway, because I would be sure that Mikkel, if he was going to get one, would probably get the Sony version. We don't know when that's actually going to be released yet, I don't think. Someone may know. They might have mentioned when it was going to be announced or released. But he quite liked it. The only thing was he used it in a studio, and I suppose I really want to see it shot outside the way that I would use it. That's why I'm really hoping I can get a copy of this lens, because I'd love to use it in a real portrait scenario, you know, at 1.4, at 105mm, obviously, for doing a beautiful photo. So I'm hoping I can grab someone like Kiara or someone and take it outside and use it with lighting and just natural light and see what that sort of produces. That's the type of thing that I'm really interested in actually seeing. So, but Mikkel has done quite a good studio. Well, actually, at the moment, I think he's about to post one in the studio. He's just done a review of it where he's talking about it, doing some figures and stuff like that. But there is a couple of other reviews there. Yes, it's massive. and that's why I really want to try it to see how it suits my sort of needs. It would have to give me a real point of difference between the 135 f1.8. That's why I'd love to try the 135 and the 105 together side by side, just to see how they compare doing a similar shoot. And that's what I think may interest you guys more than sort of seeing them individually. So I really would love to try and get them both together. Say get an 85, the 105 and the 135 and do the similar shoot. That would be really interesting. And I'm really hoping that that's the case. But I know Mikkel said he had trouble with the focus, but that could be the adapter version. Remember, Sigma is saying that the native lenses will work better than having the adapted lenses. And I think that's also going to be the case for the video. I did notice though that he did show that it did make a little bit of noise in video. And again, I think that's going to be an issue with anything that's, unless it's the probably Sony. You know, that's the thing. If you're dealing with Sony and you want quiet autofocus video, you really have to be buying the Sony lenses, I think, to get really good video through their whole range where you know that it's probably going to work. Again, though, that lens is moving really big glass around, so you would expect to make some noise. And I don't think that there may not be any way around that. So it could be that even if Sony brought out a lens that was that size, that you're still going to see or hear noise. But anyway, I'd love to. So someone's saying Oreo said Mikkel used a cheap velo. Well, that's okay. Well, thank you, Oreo. Well, that's interesting. Well, that's probably why he did have autofocus issues. I don't know why he would have used that. Yeah, oh, well, there you go. So he used a velo adapter, apparently. He may have got a totally different result if he used the Sigma MC11 or something like that. So that's interesting. Anyway, so I just thought I'd mention that there are tests out there, but I'm really hoping to get somewhere where I can test these lenses for you myself. I particularly am interested in this 105 and the 135. So they're the two lenses that I really would like to try with you guys. Cheers, everyone. Anyway, that will be coming up in the coming days. Massive lens. There's also a review down here too. Is that the 105? I'm not sure. I think that's just talking about Sigma lenses. Mikkel may be the only one. This one down here is talking about all the 85s being compared off against one another. And someone's saying there too, the Sigma 105 lens hood with one screw, it sucks. Well, that's interesting. Anyway, I've got to, like I said, I've got to have a look and test that myself. All right, so let me go to the next story because I want to ask some of you guys about this. What are we up to? 29:08. All right, 29:15. So next story is this. I noticed that if you're in the market for Capture One, you can actually get it for half price at the moment. Now, this has been around for a while. Just let me switch to this other camera because I just want to talk to you about this. I'm just wondering whether Capture One is due for an update. Just let me know too in the chat because I'd be really curious to know what you guys think about this. Because I noticed that for the last 2 or 3 weeks that they've been offering this 50% off for Capture One. Are they just about to drop a new version of Capture One and that's why this is being sort of discounted to 50%? Let me know if you've got Capture One and if that's roughly about when they would be due to release a new version of this. And I'd also be curious to know, do you really think it's worth Capture One? And we can open that up in the chat too. How many of you would prefer to use Capture One than, say, Lightroom? And I would like to know what you think about that and how it works. Basically, is it a good system or is it quite hard to use as compared to Lightroom for the library? The thing that I love about Lightroom is to use the library and things like that. You know, does Capture One have a similar system to that? I've never used it, so I can't tell you. I think, and I've never done tethering. I did years ago when I used to work in the studio, obviously when I was doing fashion, but that was different in those days. I had proprietary, I can't even remember what it was. I don't think you can do tethering with Lightroom. Is that right? Just let me know in the chat because I'm just curious. Can you tether the Sony cameras in Lightroom and does it work well or is it terrible? I know Capture One works really well apparently for tethering, but let me know. Just let me know. Do you think is it a good idea for people to have a look at this Capture One? Do you think the colors are identical to the Lightroom colors? Is there a difference, being that it's based solely around being solely around the Sony cameras, things like that. And I'll be curious to open that up into the chat later on, and we can go through that when we have questions. But there is a serious discount on that now, where it's 50% off. So if you did think about jumping in, it's probably a good time to get it. But if you did get it, do you think there's going to be another version announced very, very soon? So I'd be really curious to know what you think about that, guys, because it is a really interesting scenario. Please too, guys, if you can, I'd love a thumbs up too. It just makes more people pop on board. I really would appreciate it. So I noticed that's out now, and I think if you use this code, what was it? It was down here. You also get a free book, I believe. It's a photographer's guide to Capture One 11. You get that free code, that free book as well, I believe. But anyway, like I said, if you were going to get it, it's a really good bargain at the moment. Just let me know whether you think it's fantastic. I'd like to know. All right, so that's next story. Let me know too in the chat whether you think what the main differences are too between Capture One and what Lightroom will give you, because I really would be curious to know. What are we up to? 30... 32.50. Last couple of stories. I just noticed too, and this was interesting because I believe that this guy was a Sony Alpha. I'm not sure whether he was a influencer or whatever they call it. I don't think he was an artesian. He might have been an ambassador. I'm not sure. But this guy has been caught. Daryl Aiden Yao, apparently from Singapore, has been caught stealing work from, I think he was using Pinterest or something, to steal his work and claiming that it was his own. And, you know, I mean, how silly, guys. If ever you're going to do work, the web now, you'll be found out. You know, just make sure if ever you're doing work like this that it is your own work. I think he was using Instagram or something and Pinterest or something and using other people's work and changing it or something and claiming it was all his own. But he actually had 101,000 followers on Instagram, so he did actually have a lot of people following him on Instagram, but he's just been caught. Now, the interesting thing was, when I think he put an apology out, his readership grew. So, but I believe Sony dumped him. So Sony did dump him, I believe, as one of their ambassadors or whatever it was from their program when he was caught out. So I just thought I'd mention that, and I'll put it in the story down below. Because you can have a read of it if you like. But, you know, the thing why I wanted to show you that is that really, honestly, if you are trying to share your work, don't ever use someone else's work and claim it's your own, because sooner or later, you're going to get caught. Now, if you're starting out and then you grow big, it may really come back to hurt you. You know, so you really do have to be careful that anything you use is your own, you know, and don't use something like you've just grabbed off Pinterest and then just change it. I've used stuff as inspiration. That's different. You can use stuff as inspiration, and I wouldn't care if anyone used any of my images for inspiration, but I wouldn't be happy if they just took it and then added something into it or something like that, you know, and it was my original image. So you do have to now be very careful, because eventually you will get caught. So, you know, just be very careful about that. That you're doing it, but you know, be really careful, and that's why I wanted to show that story. All right, so next story is this one, and I thought this was really cool. I wanted to share this with you guys. 35:10. These photos. Let me just bring this over. These photos are in here. I might just reduce it a little bit just so you can see it. Let me just bring this down just a touch. These photos were grabbed with an RX 100 Mark V. I think he used another camera, which we'll mention in a minute, in a water housing. I'm seriously thinking about getting the water housing for my RX 100 V5 as well. Because it might be something one day when I go traveling, like I do, like I'm often going to Thailand and places like that. And I do love going snorkeling and stuff like that, and I'd love to try some stuff. But these images were all taken with the RX 105, and there were another camera, which I'll mention in a minute, that you can look at. But how amazing are these images? They're just stunning when you look at them. Really beautiful. You know, you can see the air bubbles coming out here, and then you get a thing of the actual size or the number of the fish that are in those images. But just stunning. I love stuff like this, and I really would love to try it, you know, and I'm thinking I may get that water housing because it's so small and great for travel, that camera, that would be a perfect way of using that camera. You know, and they're just beautiful. I mean, look at these images. They're stunning. Now, he's said down here that he's used the RX100 1 and the Sony RX100 in a Nauticam housings and the Nauticam WWL lens. Fantastic. You know, I mean, really great images. So, like I said, I'll put that in the links down below so you can have a look at that. Just so you can see, basically, have a look at them yourselves. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to open it up to questions and we'll go through everything. So fire away if you have any questions, guys. Cheers. All right, so let's go through and see what people are asking. Someone asked, did I like Guinness Blonde? I've never tried Guinness Blonde. I've only tried the normal Guinness, which I adore. One of my favourite Guinness beers or brews is Guinness. So where do the questions... So people were telling me that it's called Popper Top in the USA because I've said we have Cracker Stubby here. Oreo said, guys, the 20mm 1.4 is a terrific lens. I'll own it. Oh, that's that. You own it. Well, that's fantastic, Oreo. So you really like that lens. That's interesting. Is that the native Sony version, Oreo? Or is that one you're using with an adapter? What else? Tim said, saves you hiring the gear and they get some nice exposure. That's talking about, I'm trying to form a relationship with a local supplier that does sell these Sigma lenses and a lot of other gear too, that I'm hoping that I can review for you guys. Someone said Brewski. That's like Cracker Stubby for me. Little Ray Blue was saying, I'm thinking about the 70 macro. I don't blame you. I think that will be a great lens. And remember too, it doesn't really matter that much how the focus is on a macro lens because you nearly are always doing manual focus. So that's the beauty of that. I wouldn't be worried about how the focus is on that lens because I would be doing manual. I do use autofocus sometimes, but to be honest, most of the time I'm using manual focus when I'm doing macro work. So it wouldn't bother me at all if the focus wasn't fantastic with that lens. It's more about the quality of that lens. And I'm sure being a Sigma, it's going to be really sharp. Chris has also said in here, this is interesting because I was just asking about what you say about Cracker Stubby like we do in Australia. Chris has said in the US it's a regional thing. Here in the southeast states we just say pass me a beer. Or if we are too far gone and about to get in a fight, we say, hold my beer. I love it. Oreo said, for macro, I'll skip the Sigma and go for the Voigtlander because I know it'll be better. Yeah, the Voigtlander will be a beautiful lens. It's a longer focal length, though. You're talking about the 110mm one, Oreo. Jim said, I just cannot justify a macro lens. I use extension tubes to get near a macro. And you know what? That's one beauty. That's one great thing with the Tamron, the 28 to 75. That is almost close enough when you're in to be a macro. I could almost get away with using that lens as a macro. Amazing. What else? Tim said, I just posted in the Facebook group that you're live here. Worth doing to get more live watching. I thank you so much, Tim. I usually do in the Facebook group and I forgot. Oreo said, agree about the boring reviews. We were talking about so many of the reviews being the same and I think Sony should change tack and not be so scripted in their reviews. Like send them out to people and then get different reviews in. They could easily put an embargo on the lenses to stop people releasing them, but at least then you would have reviews where not all the reviews are the same. And the problem is you see it for the next 2 or 3 weeks that every lens review looks exactly the same. They're showing the same soccer images and the same things and it gets boring. It really does get boring. They need to change that. Chris said, I love using vintage macro lenses. Yeah, they're fantastic and especially using them on the Sony gear because the focusing is just so good when you're using the EVF and the LCD screen. Jim Penn said, Matt Granger did a more comprehensive and off-the-beaten-path review. Yeah, he did, and I enjoyed Matt's review, actually. At least it was different than what the others were showing Jim. And I watched that one. To be totally honest, the other ones, I watched for a second and then I didn't watch them anymore because, like I said, you get sick of looking at the same thing. Crazy Newt said, I liked the Granger review. Yep, I did too. It was good. And I watched the whole review, actually. Studio 96 Vienna said, absolutely, Sony must give lenses to pros and not just YouTubers. Yeah, it's a bit... And look, I'm talking from a YouTuber's perspective, guys, that I do think they should change their thinking a little bit. I think they leave... Look, I can understand what Sony are doing. Look, don't get me wrong. Sony are using massive YouTubers to get it out there, and I think that this may come from them being like this hardware producer of TVs and things like that, and I think they need to change their thinking a little bit. Some of the people like iJustine and all of these other people that they were taking to their releases of like the Sony a7 III and all this stuff really should stop. And like I've said to you before, I'm always going to tell the truth to you guys. And I think they leave themselves open to a little bit of criticism. And they leave it open to criticism like for Ken and other people when they start to see people like that Sarah Duccio or whatever her name is, all these people that they're putting in there that have no credibility at all from the side of photography that are going to these reviews. And I think Sony are just going about it to get massive reviews and posted everywhere. But in the end of the day, I don't think it's such a good thing to do. And I do think they need to start changing their thinking and giving it to true professionals, because they get more credibility by doing that than having people like iJustine and all these other people that are just YouTubers that really are just bloggers for these lenses and camera reviews that are out there. I just don't think it's a good thing to do. Now, I'm not saying it because I hate that I'm not getting that type of thing. I don't think I'll ever get it because I live in Australia. But the point is they should be using people in the US that have credibility in that area, you know. And there's a lot of Sony shooters out there that have amazing credibility, that do fantastic work. And they're the type of people that should be at these reviews, not these so-called just YouTube bloggers that like iJustine and stuff like that. And I think it's not really the right thing to do. I really think they probably should change their thinking a little bit. And it would, you know what, it would make the reviews far more interesting, because every review... I actually think what should happen is they should get rid of all of those stupid things where they take everyone in, everything's scripted, the lighting's perfect, everyone gets the same shot. Like I said, they should just start sending it out to professional photographers and get them to review it properly, as they would in their studio, as they would outside. Put an embargo on it so they can't release that until the day it's released, and then let all of them release it. And it would be so much better and so much more interesting to hear reviews from real users like that. And I think it just would give Sony a little bit more credibility, you know. And I think they need to change a little bit like that to be more like Nikon and Canon do with the people that are reviewing their Canons, like Jerry Guionis and people like that, you know, that are just outstanding photographers. You know, and if you could get people like that on the Sony side of things that were reviewing the hardware and the lenses, it would give it much more credibility than having someone like iJustine, you know. And I'm not bagging iJustine. She's amazing at what she does. I actually like watching her stuff, her blogging stuff. But she's not a photographer in that respect. So, you know, I just think it's a bit silly. But anyway, a bit of a tangent. You know what I'm like when I get on a tangent. What else have we got? Matt Granger did show it uses a portrait lens. And that's right, Chris. And that's why I enjoyed Matt's review. Jeff said, I don't care what the haters think. And I probably agree too. But I do think they should probably have different reviewers in some of these things. Jim Penn said, Crazy New Art, he had US 40,000K in hardware. Yeah, that's because he compared it against multiple cameras, and that was a great thing to do. Tim said, yes, you want skilled professional reviews, but there won't be as much exposure. Tony and Chelsea have shot some wildlife. Yeah, well, they have, but again, I would have liked to see a professional sports shooters there. And there are some out there that are using Sony. They should have been at that shoot if they were dealing with it that way. You know, and if you're dealing that you want to, the point that I'm trying to say to you is if you want to get credibility at shooting Sony for sports, you're not going to get credibility with having Tony and Chelsea shooting that camera at sports. You're not going to get credibility at all, Sony. The only way you can get credibility at shooting sports is if you had a name brand sports shooter shooting that at a game. That would make far more difference to selling that hardware than it would having Tony and Chelsea shooting that. And I understand why. They've nearly got 1 million subscribers, and I understand that aspect of it. But the people that are going to buy that lens aren't probably even going to be watching Tony and Chelsea. That's the thing that you've got to understand. They're in a different market, and you're not going to sell that lens to the mass people out there. That all of Tony and Chelsea's subscribers probably aren't going to be those sports professionals. They would get more potential sales by having a real name brand sports shooter, having that lens at a game and reviewing it, than they would having, say, Tony and Chelsea reviewing that lens. But that's just what I think. Like I said, I shouldn't be reviewing that lens. I'm not a sports shooter, so there's no way on earth I should be reviewing that 400mm lens, because I could not talk about how that lens would be in a real game, because I don't shoot that type of thing. And that's why I'm trying to say to you that they need a little bit more credibility with who they put on these shoots. Tim said, yes, you want... you're saying that they've shot some wildlife, yeah. Little Brew Eye, but if Chelsea can hold up that lens in one hand, I can too. Why do you have Steve Huff there? Again, like I said to you, it's all about YouTube views, I think. Carl said, hello, people. Gord said, I'd take that money, buy a car, and just drive closer for the shot. I love that. That's so funny. That's beautiful. The Fro is one of the biggest critics of Sony, and he seemed to love it. Yep, well, he did. I don't think you can criticise the lens at all. I'm just saying you need credibility if you're trying to sell those sort of lenses to Sony shooters. Sony are not trying to sell that lens to me, I'm telling you. They're not trying to sell that lens to you. They're trying to sell that lens to sports shooters. You need to tackle your market. And look, I'm only talking to you as a professional photographer, that I market myself to the people that I want to buy my services. There's no way I would market myself to mothers having babies out there, because I don't want to shoot that. So I don't, no matter how much money I put into it, there's no point in me marketing myself to mothers with babies or pregnancy photos, because I don't do them. So that would be silly marketing for me. So why are Sony marketing themselves to people that are not going to buy that camera? They should be marketing it to their target audience. And I just think it's a bit silly. Anyway, that's just what I'm saying as a professional photographer. Jim said 70 watching, 20 likes. Hit that mash button. Thank you so much, Jim, for saying that. Chris Barr said Ken is an arse hate. I listened to Ken's live broadcast yesterday, and all he was doing was bagging that Sony lens. He hasn't used that lens. How can he start bagging it? He was bagging the Sony A9. He was bagging that Sony lens. What is wrong with these people that bag the stuff without even seeing it? From what I'd seen in the reviews and what people had said out there, that lens looks like it's amazing. And seriously, these people need to get a life. Just hating something because it's Sony is stupid. And Ken and his supporters, if you're watching me, stop trolling that way. I don't bag basically everything that Canon does. I don't bag everything that Nikon does or Sigma or whatever. You really need to give credit where credit's due, and you have to give Sony now credit for what they've produced. That lens, the weight of that lens, the rendering that I saw looked amazing. So seriously, get a life. And all Ken does is bag it, and obviously his supporters on his channel start, saying he's rubbish and all that sort of stuff. Honestly, these people need to get a life. Honestly, Ken, I think, just does it to upset people. I just laugh and think, honestly, it's ridiculous. How can Ken bag a lens if he's never touched it? And I totally agree with you, Tim. Totally agree with you. It's ridiculous. How can you bag that lens and he hasn't touched it? 12,000 will buy a lot of stubbies, would it ever? Price of lens balances out with the price of the body. Yeah, it does. It's still cheaper, though, to get the Sony, though. Mel said, I would not worry about haters of this lens. The PJ and sport shooters will decide this lens. Almost 99% of the people cannot afford it anyway. Many can't afford the A9 at all. And that's why I said to you, Mel, that Sony should have targeted their audience more with that. Let's say this lens is U. I'm not sure what that means. The Sony 500mm is $30K on A-mount. Yeah, they're not cheap, those lenses. And remember, those lenses aren't released for mass marketing. They're released for a certain thing, and they're just really there to encourage people to come to that mount. And they have to be charged expensive because they're not going to sell so many of them. At least Patrick Murphy Racer reviewed it. His shots were way beyond the others and showed a different approach. Thanks for saying that, David. Mel said, let's say that this lens is just 6,000. Wouldn't even 1% of the people still buy it? I doubt it. So the haters' comments are irrelevant. You're right. It all seems too scripted. Yeah, and I'm just a bit over that whole thing. It does. They just need to hand them out to people that are users. And I can say things like that because I'm a free agent. I just tend to find that they all become so boring, these reviews. Give it to people that are using them. David, you could do a genuine angry photographer about Sony with all your bagging now. I could, Tim, couldn't I? I could have started that because it would be perfect. Look, I'm not bagging Sony. I think Sony do a fantastic thing. I just think they should change their marketing a little bit. I adore their gear. I just don't like the way that they're marketing stuff lately. I think it needs to change a little bit. But anyway, that's just my feeling. Some of you may think you like the way it's done at the moment, the way that they do it in a group and everyone releases similar videos. I just think it's a bit boring. Hope you like pics. Said, hi, David. Oreo said, yes, PMR shoots, which were, yeah, they were. I also commented under them under his video. Sam said, agreed, they should also use professionals, but I understand why they use YouTubers so they can get exposure for the lens. They should use a pro and a YouTuber to team up for a review. Jeff Liu said, every product announcement is scripted. Jim said, imagine that angry clip. Perhaps the angry photographer should come back. Mel said, the reason for getting those people to test these cameras and lenses is the reach of influence. These people are influencers of people. Get 200,000 subscriptions or higher and you are in. I'm not even sure if I'd want to do that though, Mel, honestly. I probably would go if they paid for me to go. I'd be stupid not to, but I just find it a little bit boring. Yeah. But I probably would go if they paid me to go as well. The problem is, and this is where I'm being totally honest with you, that the problem is they'll get the first access to this gear. So I'd be stupid to pass that up if it was offered to me. Because I would get an early access, and therefore if you get early access, you can put the videos out, and therefore you get more views and more subscribers. So yes, I can understand that. But what I'm saying is I don't think it's a good thing. I really don't think it's a great thing that's happening. It would be better if it was more like professional shooters than someone like iJustine. But, yeah, and this is where they get criticising from people that's saying that Sony are like TV or hardware manufacturers because they're doing that different system against, say, Canon or someone like that does it a little bit differently. But, but like I said, yes, if I was offered to go, I'd be stupid to pass it up, wouldn't I? Because I'm also on YouTube as well. But I'm still saying it's not a really good thing. Jeff said, real reviewers will always come at a later time, much later. Altric said some weird functions popping up. Yeah, that's on the A9. What are we saying? Dimitri said, hey, David. Dimitri here from New York. Love your videos. Keep up the great work. Always try to catch your lives, but never make it as this is the first one. Well, thanks, and I'm rapt that you can join us once for a live video. That's fantastic. Jim said, hit the like button. Thank you, Jim. Altric, Sony does the conversion for EF mounts. Yes, they do. Oreo said, Mikkel used a cheap Velo adapter. Yeah, and we were talking about the 105 before, how he was saying the focus was poor. But Oreo said he was using a Velo adapter, so no wonder the autofocus was poor. Yeah, you should be using an MC11, that's for sure. I don't know why you would have used that adapter. Chris said, isn't that Sony 20mm a crop lens? Oh, is it? Well, that's interesting, Chris. Someone else let me know. Is that crop? So it is misleading if that's the case. Like I said, I use this one, which is tiny, and I adore it on my camera. That's a 35 f2.8. I love it. And this is a great street camera for me. I use this an awful lot for video. And again, I love the 35 focal length. And this is almost like a pancake lens. It's not far off it. But I love taking this as my street lens. I'd never get rid of that lens for that reason alone. Yeah, Dominic said, yeah, he should have at least used the MC11. Yeah, I don't know why he didn't then. That's interesting. Thanks for that, Oreo. I didn't realise. Altrix said, I love Capture One. We're talking about the Capture One because I was mentioning how it's got 50% off at the moment, and what do you think about it? Always a concern when they have big discounts in software that a new version is coming. Yeah, I'm wondering about that, Tim. How long has the other version been out? Has it been out 12 months? And do they release Capture One every 12 months? Let us know in the chat, because I'd be curious to know about that for people that have already purchased Capture One. Shane said, I don't think I could leave the Adobe. Yeah, I'm not sure I could either, because I love Photoshop, so I'd still be paying for that anyway. Chris said, I will do Capture One if they go to a monthly subscription plans. I knew that's what you meant, ecosystem. Crazy Newt said, I think I will always stick with Lightroom. It's all I need. Sessions on Capture One is the same as with Lightroom. Jim said, I have Capture One 11. I love it. It supports the AC3. My classic Lightroom 6 does not. Yeah, you've got to get the latest version to support Lightroom. I do not want to pay Adobe recurring costs. Roy said, I've got the 22.8. Roy, is it APS-C or is it full frame, that 2.8, the 22.8? Sam said, Lightroom does not support tethering with Sony cameras directly. Oh, okay, there you go. Jim said, but there's an ARW converter to DNG to open in Lightroom. Oh, that's if you're using Lightroom 6. Where are we? Oreo said there are two Voigtlander macros, a 125 and a 65. 65 would be nice. Dragon said, just wanted to say hi, Aka William. I hope you have a great birthday. Yes, I did. It was an amazing birthday. I went out for a great Thai at the end of the day, which was beautiful, actually. Chris said, I agree about the lens. It's the same thing. I watched a few and don't really want to see the rest. Great lens, but let's see in different scenarios. Yeah, I agree. Brad said, I agree. The canned reviews are starting to become less effective now that Sony has reached a point of critical mass. And this is the thing, I do believe that too. You're right, actually, what you're saying there, Chris. That they probably have reached that point now, and they are now going to have to probably start to change their tact to be more specific in, like I'm saying, using professionals, because it probably will become a bit more effective. Interesting comment. Let us know what other people think about that. Let us know in the comment too. Do you think that it's working now with Sony, the way that they're bringing all these YouTubers in to do the reviews? Or would you guys like to see reviews done by professionals? You know, would you like an actual portrait photographer to be actually seeing, you know, the lens when they're reviewed? You know, it's much, and that's why I prefer to say watch someone like Jason Lanier review a lens than I would say for someone like iJustine or someone that don't have that credibility in the portrait side of things. But, you know, let me know what you think about that in the reviews as well. Because they tend to be having hardware people reviewing them, and I don't think that's such a good thing. What else have we got? Tim said they can justify the YouTubers when they have their cameras with a flip-out screen and inbuilt apps to share. Oh, you're talking about YouTubers, yeah. Well, if it was vlogging, yes, you could. I agree there. Crazy Newt, I've just got to fix my pants. Crazy Newt said, on the Sony camera channel, there are some shots and testimonial by two hardcore pros. Yeah, well, that's the sort of thing. That's the sort of thing they should be trying to share on YouTube, though. You know, like, why not have those at these releases? I mean, it's Bob Martin and Dick Didlick. So Crazy is saying they're the two that they've used. Mike said Sony actually had a professional sports shooter, Patrick Murphy Racy, who is also a Sony artisan of imagery. Did you watch his review? Yes, I did, Mike, and I loved it. The point is, though, there should be more of these people than less of them. You know, only having one is not good. Mike said, I'm really disappointed nobody shot... nobody shot any brick walls. Well, that's what I would have done if I had that lens. Seriously, if I'd had the 400mm, I would have shot every brick wall around this area from 400mm away, like a long way away, and just seeing how that... how the brick walls worked. Brad said Ken is a buffoon. He's trolling for donations from Sony haters. Yeah, I'm starting to think that's probably right. Gene said, thinking how amazing the brick walls will look with that Sony 400mm. Cheers, I love it. Brick walls are always going to come back and haunt me. Chris said, Racy review was good. Yes, it was. Ken has thumbs down syndrome. John is saying, hi, David. Mike's saying, if you talk about the haters, you give them credibility. Yep. Jim said, Mike, Imperial FLA Bricks, Pink Floyd. Oscar said, that's a good thing of being a free agent. You can say what you want. Hope it stays if you get a review of this. Well, it will be. I won't be reviewing him if I've got to be biased. I can tell you that now. There's no way I will be saying not being honest with you guys. And I can tell you that now. Same thing I told you with the Tamron. When I heard later on there was issues, I told people to send it back. Thank you for saying you love the videos too, Oscar. Thanks, I appreciate that. Tim said, not necessarily a bad advertising to non-professionals that could one day get into that field, plant a seed. I'm sure they are advertising to the professionals in the field as well. Delta Dave said, those scripted press junkies are nothing more than propaganda infomercials. I can understand why they do it, Delta Dave, but yeah, I just get a bit bored with it. Johnny said, I own that Zeiss 35 2.8 and love it. I use it for street photography. I love it too. It's one of my favourite lenses. Dragon said, the 22.8 is APS-C. He owns it. Okay, thanks for letting us know. Tim said, yes, Capture One seems to be each year with a version update. Okay, Tim. I'd say there must be going to be an update. That's something you've got to think about if you wanted to buy into that. Mirrorless MY said, hello from New York. David, any news on the A6 700? No, I don't think that's going to be released till later this year sometime. My feeling is Photokina is going to be the A7S3 is going to be announced for later this year. I just discussed that last week. Oh, no, early in the week. I think Sony are waiting on getting the new EVF because they have that new high definition EVF that's going to come out. That's 2 times the resolution of what they have now. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be put in the A7S3, and that's not going to be available till the end of the year. So you probably will have an announcement at Photokina, and then it will be in full production late this year or early next year. They could drop the A6 700 though now, basically earlier than that, because they now have that time in between. I think probably what will happen is they're going to wait till they catch up on the A7 III orders. Which I think is probably still a month or so away before they catch up with orders on that. I've heard it's actually a bit longer than that. And then they may announce an A6 700. But we're just waiting on that at this stage. No one knows. They could drop it any time, really. But, you know, I definitely think the A7S3 is probably going to be announced at Photokina to be released at the end of this year or early next year. So we're going to have to wait a while, I think. D. Hey Jono said, I bought the Rowan S and Sony is not compatible with the Rowan S yet. Oh, okay. It seems like a great gimbal. I'd love to try that one out. It's probably a bit heavy for me, though. I do love the Moza Air Cross. The reason why I love this, and I'm not sponsored by these guys at all, I love it for its size. It's just fantastic. And it's got this new thing called, I can't remember, but you can hold it down and spin the camera. I'm going to try that out actually over the coming days. I was going to do a shoot at a waterfall with Kiara yesterday, but unfortunately she hurt her neck dancing. So I had to put that off till next week. So I didn't actually, Inception Mode it's actually called. But I'm going to be doing the waterfall shoot with her next week. Yeah, she had to stop because she's hurt her neck. But I do love the Moza Air. I've just ordered the Crane M, though that's meant to be coming in a week or so, a couple of weeks. I bought it off Amazon. I've bought that so that... Oh, I haven't got the camera here. I've bought the Crane M to use with the RX100 because that's a nice small gimbal. And I thought that might work really well with using that for blogging and stuff like... or vlogging. So I have bought the Crane M, but the Moza Aircross is by far the best gimbal I've ever used. I just adore it. It's fantastic. But I would like to try the Rowan M just to give it a go because it seems like it's a really well-made gimbal. So I'd love to have a go at it. Oreo said, vloggers are needed to keep people talking about the brand. That has really nothing to do with serious reviews. Yeah, you're probably right, Oreo. Roy said it's the full-frame 20mm lens that I have. It turns into 35 on my A6 500. I want to get the Series. I use the Batis 18. Aria said, laugh at brick walls. You guys crack me up. Tim said, which is the full-frame 20mm? I saw it listed as APS-C. What is the focus like? Any good for video? Jim Penn said the A6 700 will ship with a roll-up brick wall backdrop. Oh, you guys, honestly. Clyde said, hi, David, belated birthday, happy birthday message. Missed the show too early for me. Well, thank you for the birthday message anyway. Chris said, I'm hoping the new APS-C is named the A6 and shares a new body with the option of a bigger battery. My A6 500 with IBIS kills batteries fast. Yeah, it does. I bought the Sony 85 1.8 and love it. It's a fast lens, very sharp and great for modeling. It is. That Sony 85 1.8 lens is one of the best value Sony lenses that are out there. If my Batis, if this failed tomorrow, I probably would go out and buy that Sony. The only difference is, though, that, and this may be a thing, though, that this is weather sealed. So it can take a bit of weather. The Sony 85 is not. So if you're dealing like me with shooting weddings, at least if I'm going out in a shower or whatever, I've got more confidence with this. It's also stabilized as well. So, that it does also help as well. If you're shooting video and stuff like that, that the stabilization helps. So there's a couple of things that justify the expense differences, the weather sealing and the stabilization. But whether I would buy that again, I don't know. I may just get the Sony 85 1.8 because that is a fantastic lens for the money that they're asking for that lens. You can't go wrong with that lens at all. So are there any more last questions, guys, before we call it a day? Anything before we go? I'll have a couple of other videos. I am going to put up a video of a studio shoot I did with Kiara, the low-key one. You might find it interesting to see how I shoot low-key. So I'm going to have that in the coming days. Probably tomorrow, though, I may actually do the video live. I might do a live broadcast of going through the wedding that I did with Sarah, which was a beautiful wedding. I might take you through how I shot that. So I'll go through the lighting I used, the posing I used, the lenses that I used, exposure, etc. So I might do a walkthrough of that wedding, not the whole wedding, but I'll do select images and take you through a walkthrough of that. If I did the whole wedding, I'd be there for 5 hours. But I thought I might do that tomorrow with you guys. So let me know whether you might find that interesting to see. So I'll do that as a live broadcast tomorrow, I think. I haven't done a live walkthrough for a while, so I'll talk about that and give that as well. Don't forget to join the Photography and Videography School Facebook page because I'd love to see you on there as well. Join us on that. And obviously, if you're in Melbourne or Australia, join us for that workshop on October the 18th because we'd love to see you in that. And I've put down the link below. That's $200 Australian if you want to join us for that. It's going to be great. Kiara's going to be there. Kerry will be there, a few others. So join us for that workshop as well. So any last questions, guys, before we finish? Otherwise, we'll call it a day. And I can see you all for the next video. I don't think there is. All right, guys. Catch you all. See you for the next video. Bye. Someone's just asked before I finish, would you recommend Godox flash system with a Sony? Yes. Godox, I've only used it as testing when I've been in the shops. It's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with it at all. I definitely wouldn't recommend the Sony flashes. Now, I have them. I have the top ones. Well, apart from they just released a new version of it, I've got those. But you can buy probably 3 Godox flashes for the same money. I really think the Sony flashes are overpriced, and that's the thing. I probably wouldn't be buying those anymore. I think if my Sony flashes failed, I probably would buy Godox or something like that. That's probably the way that I would go. That's all. All right, guys. See you all for the next video. Obviously, if you've got any questions about what I've spoke about, leave them down below. I'd love to know what you think about what I was talking about, the way Sony are reviewing all their gear. Put that down below, because I'd love a conversation on that too for people later on. I do always answer all those questions, so yeah, please, if I can, leave those down below. Last question. Yes, Clyde, go ahead. Clyde was going to ask a last question. Chris said, ever think about doing live critiques of other photos? I may start doing Patreon, Chris, for that, whatever you call it. I may start thinking about adding that and doing live critiques, live editing, things like that for you guys on that. So I may start up a Patreon channel to do that sort of stuff, and I've been thinking about doing that. Let me know too whether you'd be interested in me doing that, but that's going to have to be probably a Patreon type thing. But I have been thinking about doing that, yeah. Who was it? Clyde said he had a last question. Oh, that was it. I think that was all. Oh, Clyde said thanks. Oh, okay, that's it. All right, guys. See you all for the next show. Bye for now. Oh, time to crack a stubby. I might crack another stubby, actually.